Rock Parisienne, and we're down at Ottawa Blues Fest with Graham Gouldman of 10cc. Welcome, sir.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for your kind welcome.
Well, and I have to start with a short story. I started getting into music as an 11-year-old in 1970. I would buy my first singles. And after that, I started exploring back into 60s music. And it would turn out that my favorite songs by various bands would always turn out to be Heart Full of Soul by the Yardbirds, and Look Through Any Window by the Hollies, and No Milk Today by Herman's Hermits. And it was only years later that I realized that all those songs, many of my favorite songs from my favorite bands, were written by one person. And that, of course, was you, sir.
That was me, yes.
So when you look back now on that period, that was a very fertile songwriting period.
It was a tremendous period. I mean, for me, the 60s were where it all started. It set the template for me and many, many others. It was exciting. It was I guess it was the culmination of this mixture of sort of rock and roll that came out of America in the late 50s. In the UK, there were bands like Cliff Richard and the Shadows, sort of a lot of guitar music, and then the Beatles, of course, which was the icing on the cake. So it was a fantastic period.
Are there any of those songs that you look back on now that you consider, I mean, I know it's hard to choose among your children, but are there any that hold a special place for you?
Well, I like your analogy that they are your children. It is very hard to pick one as above the other. But I have been asked that question quite a lot, and I always say Bus Stop, because as songwriters are always chasing perfection, and to me, there's no such thing as perfection, but it was, for me, it was well on the way.
Now, I would love to cover every aspect of your career. We don't have time today, unfortunately, but I am curious about the first time where the four original members of 10cc really had an opportunity to work together in a concerted way in the studio, and that was for a bubblegum concerted.
Well, yeah, there were a few things happened around that period. That's right. I was working for Kasnet's Cats out of New York, and I didn't like it very much.
But it did provide a boiler pot of
training. They have to be thanked, because what happened was I was fed up working in New York, and I came back to Stockport in the north of England, where Eric Stewart had started Strawberry Studios, and I became a partner in that as well. And I knew Kevin and Lol, and they were sort of hung out at the studio as well. And I came back and I said, I want to finish these tracks in our own studio. And that was one of the first times that the four of us worked together. So even though it was artistically it wasn't a high point, nevertheless, it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good.
So there are songs out there where it's actually you guys being the Ohio Express and Crazy Elephant and all those Kasnet's Cats bubblegum groups.
Yeah, there are, but I'm not going to identify them.
Wouldn't it be great to sort of have a compilation album?
Well, actually, there is an album called Strawberry Bubblegum, and that actually does have a lot of those tracks on, and you can hear Kevin singing, and it was just a weird period. I think their idea was that they wanted to kind of, maybe legitimize their operation a little bit more. They were getting sort of more established writers, or writers that weren't necessarily associated with bubblegum, because I certainly wasn't. But it's one of those things that, although part of me regrets doing it, I'm kind of glad the way things worked out.
Sure. All right. Now, it's, of course, the common intelligence or knowledge or viewpoint that in 10cc there were two songwriting camps. You and Eric Stewart, Godley and Krem on the other side. And the simple way that people phrase that is that you and Eric were the pop team and the other ones were the more creative, artistic team. I have a feeling that you probably find that an oversimplification.
It is an oversimplification, and there were lots of songs where we mixed it all up. I mean, particularly on the albums, if you look at the writing credits, you'll see that Eric wrote with Lol, he wrote with Kevin, I wrote with Kevin and Lol, we wrote Rubber Bullets, we wrote Sun in My Face together. I wrote with Kevin as well, and wrote with Lol. But if you want to distill it for whatever reason, then I guess it would boil down to two different sides. But we all contributed to what one another did. You know, whoever wrote a song or whatever team wrote a song, the other team would adopt it as their own. This was one of the great principles of 10cc. No one ever rejected anything. Our principle was that if you wrote it and you think it's good enough, then I might not like it. What I've got to do is improve it or suggest something that will improve it. And that's how we worked. We were editors for each other. We were, you know, mentored each other in a way.
And one of those bands where, I mean, so incredible. I mean, everyone was a multi-instrumentalist, a writer, a producer. So you each brought your own things to it, but clearly also one of those groups where the sum was greater than the total of the parts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things where the chemistry, no one could have planned it. You know, it just so happened we were lucky. You know that our various common influences and individual inspirations were when they were brought together, they created this thing, you know, that was 10cc.
If I was to ask you to try to describe that magic ingredient that was more than the four of you, that essence, is there any words to sum that up?
No, because you can't plan it. It either happens or it doesn't happen. All you can look at is the four individuals and see what inspired them, and then, but that doesn't mean anything. You could get the four greatest musicians or songwriters in the world, put them together, and it will be nothing. It's nothing to do with that. There's some other element going on. It's a mystery to me.
Excellent. I'll ask you the same question as earlier. What were some of your favorite songs that you were involved in writing from the classic 10cc years?
Well, I'm going to go back to All Our Children thing.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my favourite songs actually are Kevin and Lol songs. Like The Dean and I, Clockwork Creep, One Night in Paris. Fantastic songs. I mean, it was amazing to sit down. They would come and play those songs to me and Eric, and we just go, wow, that's amazing.
I'll admit to never really paying attention to who sang lead vocals on what, but what 10cc hits did you actually sing lead on?
Well, probably the most famous one was Dreadlock Holiday, which was #1. But I sang The Film of My Love, I sang The Sacroiliac, Iceberg. There are quite a few. The idea was that whoever was best for the job got the job.
Right.
Whether it was singing, whether it was playing lead guitar.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the videos, even the YouTube clips, you're always on different instruments.
Yeah, everybody played different things. Yeah. You know, Lol was a very, very good lead player, really good. So he would play. I mean, you can hear, like say on I'm Mandy Fly Me, there are two guitar solos, right, and they're quite different, you know. But one's Lol, one's Eric. We were lucky to have that.
Well, tremendously lucky, and we were lucky to be able to experience the end result,
I guess.
After the hit-making years, you and Eric continued to work together for a certain, quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And at some point, that long time relationship just wasn't working anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't working anymore.
What finally made that?
I don't know. I think Eric got fed up with things. I was kind of happy to go on. I'm more like that, but. In a way, I'm glad it happened because I met Andrew Gold and worked with him during the 80s, and that was a tremendous time for me. I mean, very musically satisfying, working with like a kind of a musical brother in a way.
So that was 4 albums under the name Wax.
Yeah, Wax. That's right. And we had a certain amount of success in Europe mainly, and then. We decided after a time that if Wax didn't have a certain amount of success, we were going to call it a day, which we did, but we continued to work together. And until his untimely death last year, we were going to work together again as well. But he hadn't been well, that's why we hadn't worked together for a while. But no, he was, before we could get back together, he was gone.
Would you foresee any possibility that you and Eric would work together again in the future, or even has there been ever any talk of the 4 original members performing or recording again together?
Well, no, I don't think that would happen. But I've been working with Kevin Godley. We have a we had a project called GG06 where Kevin wanted to write and sing. Actually, he's got a wonderful voice, and he said, "Would you want to do this project with me?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I loved working with him. We wrote a few songs, and we thought, well, we should record them, and you can download them.
Now, there are always going to be some people that are, and in some cases rightly, suspicious when a band continues to tour with only one original member. Yeah. But you're playing with some people who have been involved with 10cc for decades at this point.
Well, Paul Burgess came on the road with us with the original 10cc in 1973. And then when Kevin and Lol left the band in 76, he came into the studio, we recorded with him on Deceptive Bends, on Bloody Tourists, quite a lot of albums. And also around that time, Rick Fenn joined us, and he's with me as well. I mean, he's been on so many of 10cc's records.
So for people that are coming down now and haven't really experienced 10cc since the 70s, for instance, what are they going to get from 10cc Live in 2012?
Well, they're going to get all the hits that you would expect, and we do various album tracks that we like or fans have requested, and the band sounds amazing. What can I tell you? It's not me that's just saying that, it's just other people have said as well, and it's lovely. It's a great I'm doing other things. I've got a solo album that's coming out myself in August called Love and Work, and that's been a real joy to work on, because 10cc I wouldn't do new material with 10cc, it's not right. So 10cc is a matter of just doing what we've always done. Whereas with Love and Work, I've been writing new songs. It's great.
All right. So one of my questions was going to be, would you foresee this lineup of 10cc recording a new album? So I guess the answer is no to that.
The answer is no. No, we would never do that. It's not appropriate. It's not right. It's one thing to... See, the way I look at it is 10cc was more about the music and the songs than anything else. So this band, it feels quite comfortable to me for this band to call itself 10cc, but it's bringing the music of 10cc to an audience, whereas to record would be going a step too far. Sure.
Are the other original members all good with you keeping it on the road this way?
Well, I know that Kevin is, and to prove it, he appeared with us when we did a short British tour last May, and he joined us on stage. Oh. So he was very happy about it.
And the other two?
I don't know.
Okay.
They don't communicate. Well, actually, Lol I have seen and spoken to him. I don't think he objects. Eric, I can't speak for.
Well, listen, I didn't know about your solo album, but let's get a plug in for that. So what's it called? Tell us about how the music differs on that from your 10cc kind of...
Well, people have said it is 10cc-ish. It's hard for me to be objective about it. But it's something I started like a couple of years ago, just doing some tracks, and then I dropped the whole idea. I thought, what's the point? And then last year we had some time off, and I listened to what I'd done, and I thought, this is actually quite good. And I finished it, and I was absolutely delighted by it. And I was inspired to sort of keep doing it, because everyone around me said how good it was, and I know people that would say that it's not good if that's what they thought. I loved making it. It's called Love and Work. I have had big changes and positive changes in my personal life, and that is reflected in the record as well. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, looking forward to hearing that, absolutely. Last question. You've come over to North America for 2 dates, one in New York and one here in Ottawa. Now, I'm no economist, yeah, but that doesn't sound like economically feasible touring schedule to me.
Well, let's put it this way. Nobody's going to make any money on this. But, the promoters wanted us to come over. They showed, I don't like to use the word faith, but they thought it would be good for us. And we did we sat down and talked about it, and we thought, hey, we can play in New York and we can play in Ottawa, and we'll have a weekend away, and it'll be very nice, and maybe get some good weather. And here we are. And it's one of those things, sometimes you have to do things as an act of faith more than anything else, and we don't do that very often, I have to say. Sure. But it just felt right.
Well, I hope you'll find that your act of faith was well chosen, and we're so glad to see you here in Ottawa. Thanks for talking to us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.